This video, we're going to dive into ambient sound design, and in particular, there's two really interesting techniques for making your sounds in your music extremely unique. The first idea is organic texture. Think stuff like rain, Foley sound effects, wind, thunder, city sounds, that kind of stuff. It adds so much harmonic variety to the sounds in your music, and it's really easy to place them in with other synth sounds. And in particular, we're going to use Ableton Live Meld. Now this is an amazing synth. It has these things called macro oscillators, which are pretty groundbreaking because of what they kind of do under the hood, creating a really unique sound for your music. I'm going to show you exactly how to get into it. Meld looks like a beast, but there's a really easy approach to make your own unique sounds on it that are just your own. We're going to get into all of that. And if you're watching this ad-free on Patreon right now, go to the link down below. There's a brand new template, preset, MIDI setup I've done based off the techniques in this video. It's a lot of fun to get into if you're looking for instant inspiration. And if you're watching on YouTube, that's a link in the description below this video. Big shout out to our Patreon Pro members. Thank you all so much. It's been a really cool year, and there's so many cool things planned for 2026. Thank you all so much for your support. Now let's get into it. Okay, so here you can see an example of what I mean by Foley or ambient sounds. You can see ocean rain. Here's one of them. You know, it basically sounds like the ocean and rain. So that's what's going on there. And in the link below, you'll find a bunch of other ones that I basically put together, ocean vinyl soundscape, granular ocean. So you can get some experimental versions of these things going, and it's gonna give you a really cool texture to your sounds. It's very easy to do. I'm gonna apologize if this sounds repetitive to our subscribers. If you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, but very easy to do if you've never done this before. You just wanna go to Instruments, and then you go to Simpler, and then you can drag whatever sample you want into where it says Drop Sample here. Now you can make Simpler bigger by just hitting this little arrow here. I've done this many times in the channel, so I'll be quick about it. But if you've never done this before, it's very easy. You go to Loop, Turn, Fade all the way up, pull loop down, and you'll see the triangle. And then what I tend to do is just use start and length to go right or left respectively, kind of finding the sweet spot in the sample. But the idea being you want a seamless crossfade when you loop this texture, pressing down from your keyboard. So you'll see that will travel to the triangle and will loop seamlessly over and over again. And so if you're, pressing down on a pad synth sound, it'll never stop. And then you just go to your envelope, and I'm just gonna make this a basic style of pad sound. 2.5 seconds, 6 seconds, and let's say 6 seconds on the release. Just a typical kind of pad envelope. So you press on a key, slowly glides in. Now I'm just going to highlight this, Control G, hit this little button right here, right click and create chain. So now you can have multiple instrument chains on top of this thing as you trigger from it. Okay, so let's bring Ableton Live Meld. We're going to drop it right where it says drop an instrument here. And the main thing with Meld is that it has these macro oscillators. So you get really, really interesting sounds from this thing. I'm just going to stack it up with the same envelope that we have here on the Simpler. So I'll go 2500, just the same envelope. This is going to come in handy because when you're layering a Foley sound that you're triggering with a sampler or Simpler, it helps a lot to have the same envelope on the synth. So they feel more unified as a sound. And then another neat trick is you can hit this little chain here, and that's going to chain it to the other oscillator. So the blue oscillator and the yellow oscillator have the same envelope. And if I decide to change something, like I want to make the attack faster or slower, it will carry over to the other oscillator. So it's not going to mess up your stack, which is useful. And this thing's just really wild. I find with Meld, I can get such a wild different sound in just a couple of minutes, primarily because you have these macro oscillators. Every single one of these oscillators does something radically different, and it's basically happening in these two knobs right here, shape and tone. But even those names will change based on the oscillator that you're picking. So it's just a world of possibilities within these oscillators. It's kind of mind-blowing. For instance, sub, you would think of this as something that is really just for 808s. But it has, you can see the name actually changed. It went to aux or auxiliary. it does something different with every one of these oscillators. In this case, it's going to add a lower sine subwave, which makes it even heavier sounding. But the tone is going to morph it into a square wave, which is really cool. So every single one of these oscillators does something different with these two parameters, which is really interesting. And this is actually a great spot to just start off with if you're kind of, make sort of a pad sound actually. Super heavy, super strong sound for a pad. Now, if I go down here and turn on the other oscillator, we can go to something like swarm sine. You'll notice a lot of these oscillators actually have the scale mode button on them, and that's because of the functions that they contain. If I go to the right-hand side, there's a little tiny scale mode button. Diatonically, I'm set to C minor. And with these things like motion and spacing, which are basically displacing different sine waves, that's why they call it swarm sine, it's going to give you a really interesting sound on its own. Of course, you can hear we've got the rain in the background too, giving a lot of character. Now it's turning into almost like a chorus, but look what happens when I add spacing. You're getting this really interesting, pretty diatonic sounding modulation that is just so unique. I mean, it really, really is kind of amazing and kind of haunting sounding too. It's really cool. And you could also like have this spacing thing move around. So of course it has LFOs within Meld, but I like to kind of do it this way for just kind of ease of workflow for me. If I go to modulators, LFO, drag and drop that in, and we'll go for, let's say, glider, slow it down, remote. This is going to allow me to control the range of what I'm going to have spacing do. I'm going to hit map, spacing, and now I can set this to maybe around 70-ish. Just have it move around in this area. It's going to add a lot of interesting stuff. So you're getting a tremendous amount of movement in like a minute. We can add back in sub. Super heavy sounding. Now this thing gets even crazier when you look at things like the spread function, which basically is going to add different values to the voices when you turn it on. So I have to go to stack. We'll stack the voices, turn this up. I'll go to matrix. You can see spread is on the right-hand side. And I could add this to something like motion. And so it's going to add even more modulation to the sound that's very unpredictable in a way. I mean, it's almost too much. Like when you do it, it's just so heavy. But I think the amazing thing is that for ambient pads, it's creating something that's so unique, and it happens in minutes with Meld because the oscillators are just crazy. Basically, if I had to describe them in a very technical way, they're just crazy oscillators, which is really cool. Now, another thing that people have asked on the channel and the Patreon is a really fast way to make the sound smoother, make them lo-fi, make them older sounding, give them sort of a vibe, which is probably, now to come to think of it, kind of relevant for Meld because it's a very sort of newer kind of sounding synth. And it's actually really easy to do. My first piece of advice for that is to grab reverb. And I like reverb on pads because it's very forgiving. So I'll go to audio effects. I have a preset on the Patreon that's for free. You can get it called Steady Space. It's like my favorite little diffusion setup I like to use. But I'm just going to drag and drop it after Meld. It's not going to go on my ocean sounds. And what I'm going to do on this is just pull the decay down. Doesn't need to be a whole lot of decay. And so we're going to get sort of a further away sound for Meld now. And just massive, right? It's just huge sounding. And then another thing I like to do is go for vibrato, but you have to go to chorus ensemble. It's like a hidden mode in there. I'm going to drag and drop that after everything, and I'm going to go to vibrato, turn up the warmth, turn the rate down. I like about 25% of the amount. And this is going to sound a lot more kind of warbly sounding. So just super unique, right? It's just really, really cool stuff. And then another really cool trick, because we're in Ableton Suite, is cab. It's funny because I feel like people can overlook this one because, you know, it's part of sort of the what they did pedal, amp, cab. So sort of Ableton's attempt at doing halfway decent amp modeling, right? And cool thing about it though is that this is sort of like adding a bandpass filter or a convolution kind of plugin. And if you just hit a output and dual, you can keep it stereo. And you'll notice it's just a lot warmer sounding. It's just so unique, right? I mean, really vibey, really warm, very easy to get there. I'm going to link this preset from the video down below. If you're on Patreon, go check it out. If you're on YouTube, there's a link in the description. You can check it out. And yeah, just have fun with it. Once you kind of get into these macro oscillators, the Swarm ones are great. Sub is great. There's a lot of other great ones. Be sure to check out Chord and Chip as well. Those are really, really cool, especially the ones that have scale mode enabled on it. Highly recommend it. But I'll leave it there for now. Have fun making music. Thanks for watching.